Drillminister, is that how I should address you?
Young Drilly, Drillminister.
Young Drilly.
Do
you know what? This has had a huge impact. I know you put this together with Simeon Brown, the reporter from Channel 4 News. Drill is often criticised and, in fact, criminalised in some ways because of the language that's used about knives, guns, and the violence that it is supposed to trigger in some cases. What did you think when Simeon Brown came to you with some of the words that politicians have used about each other?
I wasn't surprised, really. Politicians are just like everybody else on the street. They're human beings. They do things that we do. There's no difference in human beings. Human beings have got character traits. The character traits that are portrayed on us are always negative. The character traits that are put towards politicians is always positive, which is not reality because we're all human beings. We all have flaws.
Do you have any sympathy with them? I mean, it's extraordinary. That last quote that George Osborne said, he would not rest until Theresa May is chopped up in bags in my freezer. I mean, if that was a lyric, which you made
It'll be a hard lyric, that's what I'm saying.
Wouldn't it just? And people would be criticising you and people would be saying that's sick and that's not a good example for young people.
Sick in a bad way.
Boom, bam! Boom, bam! That's what it'd be. But on a serious note, that's the state of the country that we're living in right now. That's the state of the politics. That's the extremism that's going on. You get me? I just highlighted it. That's what I did. I just put it out there for everybody to see.
Can I just ask a question? Because everyone's going to be dying to know this. Why have you, right now, got the balaclava on?
I see it as this. Like, on the streets, we're sick of fakeness. We're sick of, like, people telling us what it is or telling us how to live or what's right and what's wrong. If somebody was blind and they were to interact with me, they'd have to take me on my character. They wouldn't have to take me on how I'm portraying myself. It's not about that. The music's about what I'm saying and how powerful my words are. That's what's important, not how I'm portraying myself.
But then this is a portrayal, though, isn't it?
It's a portrayal of me keeping my identity to myself so that my music has more power. That's what it's for. It's not about me.
Dawn Butler, drill music is often blamed for, being part of this violence in gang culture. It's not a very good example, is it, if members of your own party are saying, this is Jess Phillips, the MP, Labour MP, the day it becomes clear about Jeremy Corbyn, you're hurting us more than helping us, I won't knife you in the back, I'll knife you in the front. I mean, those are exactly the sort of words that rappers get criticised for.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's quite hypocritical, and I think that politicians have to take a long look at themselves. I think it was a good point, powerfully made, and I retweeted and said as much. And at the end of the day, politicians, we're in a formal environment, we're in Parliament, we are essentially running the country. OK, we have the Speaker, and the Speaker regulates language in the House, so, you wouldn't be able to say something like that actually on the floor of the House. But we do have a responsibility, and I think anybody that says otherwise is being quite naive. And so I wouldn't defend the language of politicians that's featured in the video. And in fact, I've raised the question a number of times, and, one politician mentioned the N-word, and she was reinstated back into the Tory party without an explanation, and I want to know why, because I'm offended by that word, whether it's in Parliament or outside of Parliament.
Is there a difference between the metaphors used, knifing in the back, knifing in the front, chopped up bags in the freezer, which clearly are...
I've never heard the metaphor of chopped up bags in the freezer.
But I don't think George Osborne was actually meaning that he wouldn't rest until she was. I mean, this is a point for you, Tom. Is there a difference between that and then perhaps the casual use of, as Dawn says, the N-word by an MP, which is that a different category?
I think they are different categories, and I think a lot of the discussion over the last couple of weeks, since there was some pretty robust, shall we say, briefings in the Sunday papers about Theresa May ahead of the 1922 committee meeting, I think a lot of this discussion has been about...
And those, what sort of phrases were used?
Phrases like people saying that, again, she was going to be stabbed in the back at this meeting, that she should bring her own noose, etc. And, again, it's that kind of more kind of violent metaphors, I think, which has been the main thrust of this discussion.
And the knife would be... I think, Drillminister, you used the exact phrase, didn't you? the knife would be heated and twisted.
But I think the point we have to come back to is the fact that we know politicians are talking metaphorically when they speak like this. I don't think anyone thinks otherwise. And I actually think one of the good things about Britain's political culture is it is often quite colourful, rambunctious. There isn't that sense of deference of leadership, and there isn't, or consensual politics.
I just want to pick up on that,
places.
Tom. You're saying that everyone knows that politicians are speaking metaphorically. Well, in Drill's case, why doesn't everyone assume that they're speaking metaphorically? Are you speaking metaphorically in your, or is there any meaning to what your real, genuine, honest meaning to what you're normally rapping about?
Drill's about being real to yourself, but if every single person was metaphorically chopping and stabbing, we would be seeing like 500 bodies a day. That's impossible.
Dawn, do you see a connection between the actual lyrics of drill, gang, rap, and the violence? Do you think there are implicit threats there, which you might distinguish from the colourful language of politicians?
I think there's a couple of things. I think language is very powerful. I mean, anyone that cannot see or know that is denying the reality of the situation. Language has always been powerful and always will be. It's the way we communicate, it's the way we portray a message. I think the videos are something different. So I think when you have violent videos, that's something very different. And those are things that causes problems and issues and often spill out onto the streets. But in regards to language, we know that it is very inflammatory. We know that it can create wars. It can create... I mean, if you look at the language of the President of the United States, you look at the consequences of that, you know, to deny that is to deny that we have an effect in how we communicate.
Tom, do you see that link? Because that over the last couple of days, that's been a big thing. The President criticised for using very divisive, nasty language, and then him hitting back at the media and saying it's their fault.
I think it's really dangerous to go down this road to suggest that the rhetoric of politicians leads to violent actions. I think that absolves the people involved in those kinds of attacks or those kinds of threats of any responsibility. And I think often these things are used in a pretty partisan way. You know, there's heated debate on all sides at the moment. I think to go down this road of blaming when these things boil over...
Can you not have a heated debate without resorting to violent language, resorting to stabbing people or, you know... Chopping them up and putting them in the freezer. I mean, you know, are we not equipped enough to have a debate where we don't have to resort to violent language?
What I think is I don't think that debate should be chilled by kind of over-concern about the words they use. And on this point, I agree with John McDonnell. He caught a lot of flack a few years ago for the way in which he referred to Esther McVey as a stain on humanity, made a lynching reference, etc. And he said, look, I might have gotten a little bit ahead of myself, but I'm not going to apologise for feeling passionately about certain issues. And I think sometimes politics is best when it is passionate, when things are at stake. And I think trying to stress that people should watch their words could actually get away from that.
I wonder whether young gang members, though, feel there's a bit of hypocrisy.
Oh, definitely.
There
is completely. Because in exactly the same way, I don't think politicians, you know, using colourful metaphors poisons our politics. I also think that this moral panic about drill music, this idea that it instantly leads to violence, that it should be held responsible for much more profound social problems, I think is just, if not more,
I think the answer to that is very simple. Anything associated to the hood, anything associated to the people that are underprivileged, if we were all into doing ballet and we were all wearing balaclavas, wearing ballet, you'd still say they're making murderous ballet or look what they're doing to ballet. There's anything associated to us, we're going to get stained. It doesn't make no difference. The only difference is this is our form of music now. So you're chastising this.
So how do we change that? Very quickly, how do we change that perception then?
That perception has to be changed by people opening their minds, people trying to understand instead of pointing the finger and saying, oh, I don't understand it, so there must be a problem there. We're a reflection of the Britain that you've forgotten about. We're a reflection of the Britain that you choose to ignore. But this is what this song charting and being a big middle finger back to the establishment, this is what it's about. To say, we understand what you're doing and we're going to tell you what you're doing and show you what you're doing.